Hello and welcome to the Blue Open Studio tutorial video series. The topic of this video is the scheduler. In this video, we'll be discussing properties of the scheduler worksheet, and we'll demonstrate configuring a scheduler worksheet. So in Blue Open Studio, we have the capability of creating a worksheet that can schedule tasks automatically based on date, time, or a tag change. This feature is called the scheduler. And the scheduler is set up similar to other features in Blue Open Studio, and that is via a worksheet. And the scheduler is configured by event type. So we have three different event types. We have calendar, which is based on a certain time and or date. Think of this as being used for cycles greater than 24 hours, so say once a day or the first of every month or the first of the year, something like that. Then we have clock, which is based on time intervals, be it hours, minutes, seconds, and sometimes milliseconds. And it's used for event cycles less than 24 hours. And this is commonly used for simulation or triggering trend graphics. And we will look at that in another video when we discuss trending. And then change event is based on the change of a tag's value. Now for the scheduler worksheet, other than the event column, there are several other columns, and depending on the event configured, not all of the columns are used. So before we get into what fields are used for each type, let's take a look at the different columns or fields that are available. We already discussed event. Then we have trigger, which is the field that's used for change exclusively, and it is the tag that the change event looks at. And then the time and date, these are used for the calendar or clock event types. Calendar can use both time and date. Clock will only use time. And then all three would use the tag column, which would be configured with a tag that would receive a value from an expression or formula placed into the expression field. And then the disable field is just like the disable in any other feature in Blue Open Studio. It evaluates that field. If that field is true, meaning non-zero, the event is disabled. And now for each event, there are only certain columns that are used. The required columns are in green. So both calendar and clock, only the time field is required. And for change, only the trigger field is required in order to fire the event. And then to actually execute whatever action for the event, the expression field is required. And the optional fields in yellow for calendar is the date field. As you see, the clock will not use that because since it's less than 24 hours, we don't have to worry about putting a date in. And then for all three, the tag field and disable are optional. And then the not used fields are in red. For both calendar and clock, the trigger field is not used because they're time-based. And then additionally for clock, the date is not used. And then the change event will not use date and time because now we are interrogating a tag to see if the value of that tag has changed. And as I mentioned before, the expression, once that is executed, whatever the result is of that expression or formula, will then be placed into the tag, entered into the tag column. And some example uses for the scheduler would be a simulation counter for, say, a demo application. Report generation, let's say you want to generate the report once a day at midnight, and also to change screen. As you see for row 3 in this example, we have a trigger of screen change tag, and then when that tag changes value, the expression is open the main, and then we put the result into the screen status. So what we will do in our training application is we are going to set up a scheduler worksheet to simulate some information for a trend graph. In addition, we will also enter in an entry for generating a report based on a certain time of day. So we will first open the scheduler worksheet. And to do that, in the Project Explorer, I go to Tasks, and then Scheduler towards the bottom, I will right-click and select Insert. and we see the worksheet. We have a description field in the header, and this is optional, but for us, I'm going to enter in training scheduler. And now I will start configuring my events. So for the first one, I'm going to leave it set to clock. Then for the time, I'm going to enter in 1 second. And to do that, I can't just enter a 1 in because it gives me an invalid value. So what I have to do is I actually have to enter in a time format. And I can't just do 0, 1 because it will give me an invalid value again. So what I have to do if I want 1 second is to first put in the number of hours I want, in this case 0, colon, then the number of minutes, in this case 0, colon, and then the number of seconds, which is 1. And then I will leave the date blank because I won't use it for clock. And then the tag, I will enter in a new tag here, and it is going to be SEC counter 1. It'll ask me to create it. I will leave it as an integer data type and set the scope to local. Then for the expression, we can either put a tag in here, we can put a formula, or we could do a built-in function. In this case, what I am going to enter in is I'm going to use an if condition. And what we want to do is we want to allow this counter to increment to a certain value and then reset. So I am going to use the if condition to control that. So I'm first going to put an if, and no, I don't have to use curly brackets to encapsulate this. I can just start typing in the expression. So then it's an if, open parenthesis, SEC, counter 1, less than 100, comma, and now I put in what to do if the if condition is true. In this case, will be SEC, counter 1 plus 1, comma, and now if the expression is false, 0. So what this expression is saying is if the SEC counter 1 tag value is less than 100, increment it by 1. Else, reset it to 0. And then it's going to take the result of this and then put it into SEC counter 1 as the tag's value. And then for the disable field, I am going to enter in a tag, stop count equals 1. Now we'll create this as a Boolean with local scope. And I will expand this out so we can see it a little better. So now we have our first row configured. Now we're going to create 2 more counters that are very similar to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to copy this row and I'm going to paste it twice. And then in row 2, I'm just going to change the time from 1 second to 2 seconds. And then simply change the tag from SEC counter 1 to counter 2. I'll create it as an integer local scope. Do the same with the expression. And then I will leave the disable field as is. And then for row 3, I am going to clear out the time and change it from clock to change. And for the trigger, I am going to right click and select insert tag. And this time I'm going to select system on the left hand side tree list for the tag type. And I'm going to type in the selection field second. Now I'm going to use that tag as my trigger. So every time that tag changes value, which will be once a second, it will now execute this row in the scheduler. So I'm going to change the tag to SEC counter 3. Once again, create it as an integer with local scope. Change my expression to reflect the new tag. And disable will be left as is. And now we're going to add in one more row that will configure an automatic report for us. So I am going to set this to calendar. and I am just going to use the time column. And now the time column goes from an interval to an actual time of day. So let's say that we wanted to generate a report at 12 a.m. every day. And since Blue Open Studio looks at time in 24 hours, we have to put in 12 a.m. in 24 hour. So that would be 00:00:00. And if I leave the date field blank, it will execute this row every day at 12 a.m. If I wanted to execute this at a specific date, I could put in here 01/01/2018. And now it would execute this only on January 1st, 2018 at 12 a.m. I'm going to clear this out. And then I am going to leave the tag field empty. So now for the expression, I am going to enter in the built-in function for generating a report. And we looked at reports in another video. So for this, I am going to type in report, open parenthesis. Then I'm going to tell it where to save the report to, which will be disk, colon, and then the report name, which is report1.rep. Close quote, close parenthesis. And now for the disable field, I'm going to enter in a new tag called auto rep equals 0. I'm going to create it as a Boolean data type with local scope. That disable field will disable the entire row and ignore the trigger or the time, depending on your event type. So now with my scheduler worksheet configured, I'm just going to go up and save, and I'll save it as sheet number 1. And now if I go back under Project Explorer and expand Scheduler, I see my new scheduler worksheet show up there. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact ProFace America Technical Support by phone at 1-800-289-9266, option 2, or by email, support@profaceamerica.com. You can also visit our website, profaceamerica.com, for manuals, drivers, product FAQs, and other product and software information. Thanks again, and have a great day.